23 seconds late. Sorry, I wasn't sure. Good evening, everyone from the United States and what I call the Dharma Hermitage, my little cabin here. Last week, we began talking about the 8 verses of thought transformation, or 8 verses of training the mind. And we finished 2 of the verses, went over them somewhat. So just as a little bit of a reminder of the verses that we covered. So the first verse, that the translation that I think most of you have, determined to obtain the greatest possible benefit from all sentient beings who are more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel. I hold them most dear at all times. So I mentioned that there are other ways you can choose the wording that you like. Of course, it would be good to memorize the FPMT version that you recited ABC when you're in a group, so you don't falter, but you may find some more meaning. Like I usually think, rather than saying determined, I say responsible, with responsibility to obtain the highest benefit for all sentient beings. Here the translation we have says from all sentient beings, but the Tibetan doesn't have a from all sentient beings. It actually says there's a locative particle after sentient beings, la, which means to or for. So with the responsibility to obtain the greatest benefit for all sentient beings, who themselves are more precious than the wish-fulfilling jewel, I will cherish them always. Chepa Zimpa Shok, Takdu Chepa Zimpa Shok. So we talked about that as sort of like the general introduction to the training of the mind. One of the most important aspects of it is holding others as more important than oneself in order to enter into the bodhisattva activities. And then, just as a reminder, I mentioned the second verse, wherever I am and whomever I'm with, I always consider myself the lowest of all, and from the depth of my heart, hold others dear and supreme. Thupten Jinpa's translation of that, the Dalai Lama's translator, he has a large book that I don't have here with me right now called the Lojong Chemo, I think it's called, the great text that has all these different lojongs, texts about training of the mind. And in there is a commentary by Geshe Chekawa, who didn't write the 8 verses. As I mentioned last time, he was interested in it, having read it. It was composed by Langri Tangpa, the great Tibetan Lama, who was a disciple. Langri Tangpa was a disciple of Geshe Potawa, as I mentioned last time, in the Lanrim lineage lamas. And the Lanrim, Geshe Potawa is the most important of the Shungbawa, the lamas that emphasize studying the great monastic texts, not necessarily monastic, the great Buddhist texts in their entirety. And Langri Tangpa was a disciple of his. He wrote this, and he was one of the first people, he was the first who revealed the 8 verses that he had received in more or less secret form. Before that, he was the first Lama who did that. So in later, Geshe Chekawa who is also in the Lanrim lineage, in that same Shungbawa, the lamas who studied the great extensive texts. He was unsure about it. He wanted to study with Sharawa, but Geshe Langri Tangpa had passed away. So he went to another lama to ask some questions. And after much study, he wrote a commentary on it. So this is not necessarily the definitive commentary, but if you have that book, it's in English, the great treasury of the lojong teachings, training of the mind teachings. So there, Thupten Jinpa, Geshe Jinpa translated, whenever I interact with others, I will view myself as inferior to all and will train myself to hold others superior from the depth of my heart. So I myself even translated differently. Whoever I'm with, or when I meet with anyone and at any place, I will consider myself to be the lowest of all. I'm reading up the Tibetan here, and cherish others as supreme from the depth of my heart, or sincerely consider others as supreme. So one of the big pitfalls when one practices the training of the mind, when one is, say for instance, one is trying to help others, one is doing activities to try to help others, you might consider yourself, to be superior to them. Or let's say when you're making offerings, I mentioned last time, if you're giving money to a beggar, or help to someone, you might consider yourself in a superior position, and that always defiles your activity. I mentioned one of the verses I like very much is that a Tibetan Buddhist verse that says, in the springtime, the grass grows first in the lowest part of the valley, and as the summer progresses, as it starts getting warmer, it starts to grow on the sides of the hill, but it never grows on the top of the snow mountains. So the thought is realizations rise more quickly in the mind that is humble. Pride is considered to be one of the great defects. Okay, so that's a little review from last time. And now today we're going to begin with verse 3. All right. In all my actions, I examine my mental continuum, and the minute a delusion arises, since it endangers myself and others, I forcefully confront and avert it. Avert it, not convert it. Confront and avert it. Yeah. So Thupten Jinpa takes a slightly different. During all my activities, or in another text that he wrote on the Kadampa Lamas, he changed his own translation of that in Geshe Chekua's commentary just a little. In all my activities, I will probe my mind, and as soon as an affliction arises, since it endangers myself and others, I will train myself to confront it directly and avert it. So I myself also have my own preference, and in all actions, I will be vigilant of my mind, being vigilant of my mind stream in all actions. The instant an affliction arises that endangers myself and others, I will confront and avert it without delay. Maybe did I say as soon as? The tema taktu in the Tibetan means just the moment, the instant. It doesn't even, in our version here, it says the minute a delusion arises, maybe even as soon as it arises. So what's the point of this? If you're trying to practice and to develop the two bodhicittas, the conventional bodhicitta that aims for enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings, and ultimate bodhicitta, which is the understanding of emptiness within that, the mind stream of someone who has conventional bodhicitta. We call these the two bodhicittas. This is the main aim of the, the mind training. When you're trying to do that, it's very difficult if your mind is constantly under the influence of your own afflictions, or we could call delusions. Those of you who studied when I was there before, you may remember, or you may know from your own, the Tibetan word nyonmong means delusion or affliction. In Sanskrit, it's klesha. So whatever the kleshas arise, and they do endanger myself and others, because when we get angry or we act out of attachment or pride or jealousy, our actions are not authentic toward others, and therefore they don't really benefit from our actions. You know, obviously, if we act with anger, we can strike out and harm them. When we act with jealousy, we can harm them in other kinds of ways. But it also, the afflictions mainly become a great obstacle to myself as an aspiring bodhisattva, someone who's trying to train in the bodhisattva's activities, trying to develop the bodhicittas. They've harmed us in the past, as Lama Zopa likes to say, as it says in the Lanren teachings. They are harming us now, and they will, if we don't get rid of them, they will continue to harm us in the future. Now, of course, by developing conventional bodhicitta, training in that helps to subdue the afflictions, the delusions, anger, ignorance, attachment, and all of the various 84,000 different delusions. And ultimately, the realization of emptiness, if we have a direct realization of that, it can eliminate some of the delusions from the very root so that they'll never come back again. But until we have that, when we're trying to develop those states of mind, whatever we do throughout the day, to be vigilant of your mind stream. Vigilance is kind of like the main activity of someone who's practicing the Buddhist path. Vigilant of their own mind stream, watching their mind to make sure that one's motivation is good, that one is not under the influence of attachment or anger and ignorance and so forth, all of these different delusions that one, if one takes time, you can study in the texts on lojong, on lorik, awareness and knowing and so forth. So what does this mean? Vigilant of one's mind stream. So that means that whatever one's doing, part of your attention is focused inside, not only on what you're doing and just letting words come out without any guard on your speech and so forth, or your actions. I will vigilant of my mind stream in all actions. As soon as delusions arise, as soon as afflictions arise, endangering myself and others, I will confront and avert them without delay. So Lama Zopa Rinpoche, when I remember when he first taught this to us in 1974 at Kopan, after the 7th meditation course, he gave the example, and is mentioned in many of the texts, some guards outside the king's chamber with spears, right, to keep the enemies out or keep malcontents out, those that are not wanted, anyone that might endanger the king. So any of these thoughts that might endanger our mind, we have to have a guard, which is like this mental factor of vigilance, watching the mind stream. And when you notice that you're falling under the influence of one of the delusions, you don't just stand there and let that delusion run rampant. You try to, like the guard at the door, taking the spear and holding it out toward the enemy to confront the affliction, not only to confront it and say, you shouldn't be here, or, I shouldn't have that, but you actually have to apply an antidote to avert it, to cause it to disappear from your mind. So to be able to do this kind of thing, watching your mind to try to get rid of the delusions in your mind, this is one of the greatest activities that you can be doing all day long. Training the mind in that way. So what skills do you have to be able to do that? Well, one, you have to first recognize, as you're being vigilant, you have to recognize the delusions, the afflictions, the klesha, as klesha. You have to recognize them, and you have to recognize them as enemies, as something that is harmful, that's going to endanger you. So that requires you studying, like with Ken Rinpoche, with the other teachers at the center that give courses to help you to, and you may have studied even in the Theravada tradition, the various afflictions that arise in the mind, to recognize what are their defining characteristics. You have to understand their shortcomings, their harm to us. So as I said, they've been harmful to us in the past because falling under the influence of the delusions, they've kept us from practicing. Even when we were younger, before we met the Dharma, maybe some of you were born in a Buddhist family, so you were always with the Dharma, but if not, in not just the early part of this lifetime, but in previous lifetimes, they've kept us ensnared in cyclic existence, in samsara, never finding the leisure to practice thoroughly, never finding the leisure perhaps to take ordination as a monk or nun, or to take the bodhisattva vows or the tantric vows, or to study, or to meditate, to do a 3-year retreat, whatever. They are harming us now because even if we try to do virtuous actions, we try to help others, if the mind is, if that action is coincident with, if while we're doing that in our mental continuum, in our mind stream, if there are afflictions present, that action doesn't become pure dharma. Becomes like what we call striped action. Maybe we try to do something good, but we're thinking about the reputation that we might get, let's say, as we make offering to someone, or as we're making prostrations, if other people are looking and thinking that we are very holy, having some pride. Also, if you have a sense of superiority to the person you're giving to, as I said before, that can also defeat the purpose of benefiting that person and benefiting yourself. Your karma is what we call mixed karma, kind of like the white and black strands of a striped rope. If you take 2 different colored strands and you wind them together and you make one rope, there's kind of like a spiral pattern of white and black. Like that, our whatever virtue that we create by trying to do some action is mixed with that negativity, so that we ourselves in the future won't be able to rely on that good karma to make realizations very quickly. In fact, when it ripens, even if our virtue ripens, it may ripen in such a way that, we receive some windfall, let's say, of resources, someone leaves us some money or something, but immediately there's a court action against us to take that away, or we owe taxes on it because of the negative action that we created at that time when we created the action of generosity. So vigilant of my mind stream throughout all actions. Whenever afflictions arise, endangering myself and others, I will confront and avert them without delay. So to do that, first of all, you have to recognize a delusion as a delusion. You have to know the definition of it. And that's a great practice, to look in your own mind stream and see what anger you have, what grudges you hold, and so forth, what attachment you have, and how that manifests in your mind. You have to recognize the delusion, and you have to recognize their defects, their shortcomings. So, as I said, in one way you can talk about the past, the present, and the future. In the present, what harm do they do us, these actions, besides their, creating, when we have those delusions in our mind, we create negative karma, right? Even if we're doing a virtuous action, the virtuous action is mixed with that negative karma that we're creating simultaneously by having that delusion in our mind. When we have anger, it also presently, when we know angry people in the world, we can see their facial expression is changes, their whole demeanor changes. Maybe their face gets red, their body shakes, their eyes get large, and so forth. And others, even animals, avoid them. Other people avoid that person. They have a bad reputation. So it harms us even in a very worldly, mundane sense. I'm thinking of a politician, maybe you'd be able to figure out who I'm thinking of right now, who always thinks he's right and makes outlandish statements that so many people slap their heads, How could he say that? So it affects our reputation and how others feel about us, and any kind of respect that they have when delusions arise. But the main, a deeper shortcoming, a danger to ourself and others, is that it creates karma for us to experience rebirth in the lower realms, and even born as a human, or as a god for that matter, our other experiences that life can ripen in ways that are concordant with that delusion. That we can be bereft of resources, we can be poor, we can be unattractive, we can have a body whose health is not very good. But the deepest, on a deeper level, one of the greatest defects of the afflictions, the delusions, is that we create the continuity of creating them again in the future. The effect that's similar to the cause as an action. So when we get angry, it's as though we're meditating on anger. And we create the imprint much more easily to get angry in the future. As I mentioned in previous visits to ABC, this effect of our actions this habitual effect is, in one sense, the greatest negativity. Being born in hell, that'll finish. Being born as an animal for eons, that will eventually finish. But because of our habitual, the imprints that we've created to habitually engage in negative activities or to create these delusions, they will be with us forever. So one of the main ways of preventing that is to take, for instance, to make a very firm determination, watching your mind stream and preventing them from coming. Like if you have the tendency to exaggerate or to not tell the truth exactly, or just to outright lie, thinking, oh, it's just a white lie, it won't hurt. To watch your mind stream, and for some period of time during the day, not to make sure that you don't fall under the influence of that delusion, because that is in a sense, that perpetual creation of that negative karma is the one that will harm us the most. So I think this is a great practice, watching your mind stream, vigilant of your mind stream throughout all actions. When delusions arise and afflictions arise, endangering myself and others, I will confront and avert them without delay. So what does the avert mean? You recognize them, you see this is not, definitely is not something that I want to have, it's something that I want to be rid of. You have to, in the next sense, in the next part of that, averting them, you have to know the antidotes for those afflictions. So as I mentioned, I think in one of the courses last year when we talked about the antidotes to attachment, there's or to anger, let's say, Kadampa Geshe's had a particular meditation on that. We talked about the arrow and the target. To overcome that, to meditate on impermanence, to meditate on bodhicitta, to meditate on the other person as being your guru. Maybe some of you who were there before during the talks I gave may remember that. That's an example of applying the temporal antidotes. Temporal antidotes mean that's a way of averting them. It's not just a matter of saying, I'm not going to get angry, and not think about that. That's not really averting them with an antidote. That's what we want to be able to do. Something that, while that other state of mind is present in our mind, an antidote, like loving kindness, to think that the other person that we're getting angry at is giving us the chance to practice patience, that they're actually helping us in some way. So rather than focusing on them as something that we don't need, to see them as something that we do need. Defocusing on that which is our mind is exaggerating, either causing us to get angry or exaggerating the good qualities of something, having attachment for it. Taking our mind away from that exaggerating mind by focusing on something else, an antidote, that first of all allows the anger or attachment or jealousy or whatever to go down somewhat, and then the actual antidote will take place and prevent that from rising again. So vigilant of my mind stream throughout all actions, whenever afflictions arise endangering myself and others, I will confront and avert them without delay. So let's go on to the next one. Verse 4. Your translation, whenever I see sentient beings who are wicked in nature, and overwhelmed by negative actions and heavy suffering, I hold such rare ones dear as if I had found a precious treasure. Or as Geshe Jimpa says, when I encounter beings of unpleasant character, those oppressed by intense negative karma and suffering, as though finding a treasure of precious jewels, I will train myself to cherish them, for they are so rarely found. I like, that's a little bit better. And the version that I say is, whenever I see sentient beings of bad character, you know what bad character means, those that are, the ones that your mom didn't want you to hang out with, that have the tendency of being a little bit shifty and working for their own aims and getting into trouble and so forth. Whenever I see sentient beings a bad character, overwhelmed by negativities and suffering, intense suffering, I will cherish them as, I will cherish these rare ones, I would cherish these as dear as if I had found a precious treasure which is difficult to obtain. So what's the meaning of this? So generally when we meet people that are causing us problems, especially those who are very obnoxious, bad character and so forth, we'd like to avoid them because they're unpleasant. But the bodhisattvas see that as an opportunity, or the proto-bodhisattvas, because a real bodhisattva is someone who already has developed spontaneous bodhicitta in their mind stream. So the proto-bodhisattvas, like ourselves, we'd like to become bodhisattvas. We'd like to develop bodhicitta and practice the bodhisattva deeds. We should see them as those kind of situations when we encounter people like that as a rare opportunity, because as our karma becomes more and more pure, better, there's less and less chance that we meet such people. You might, like me, you might say, oh no, I meet a lot of people like that because my karma is not that pure. So I meet a lot of people that, creating negative actions and experiencing great suffering. Sometimes we'd like to be free of them. I think I even mentioned last time or in previous teachings at ABC, the monk who used to be our disciplinarian at Kopan, who seemed to be, full of himself and being very mean and not very happy, so consumed with heavy suffering. We would like, in our mind, we thought, oh, it'd be so nice if he left. So when Lama Yeshe had sent him to another center to work there, there was a period when we felt some relief, but then immediately afterwards we felt, oh, now we missed an opportunity, because during that time we really had to watch our mind. It gave us a chance to practice patience, to try to see the other person with compassion, rather than thinking of it as something that we didn't need. This was something that we did need. We almost wished you were back. So in Tibetan, Rangshen Nyembe Semchen Nam, sentient beings who are of bad character. Dik dup trakpo nun tong se. Se means when I see, tong, those beings of bad character oppressed, pressed down You know, Nunpa means like when your foot pushes down. Nunpa can also mean with Zilginun when we talk about the bodhisattvas who can outshine, press down the brilliance of the gods by their own realization. Nunpa means to suppress, press down by violent dikpa, negativities, which means negative karma, and duk is short for dugnel, suffering, dik duk. So those are the two manifestations of our karma, that can arise as our creating negative karma, those beings of bad character, or they're very suffering as a result of their past karma. Two are interrelated, obviously, because in creating negativity, they create the cause for future suffering, and they create the cooperative conditions for other suffering to rise, other karma to rise. Whenever I see them, Rinchen Terdang Tepe Shin, like encountering, meeting with a treasure, Rinchen, of jewels, a jeweled treasure or precious treasure, like meeting a precious treasure. Nepe Kawe Chesin Shok, or Chesin Lop. There's the two ways of talking about these. I will, or I will train. I will hold them, I will cherish them, since they are difficult to find. So the bodhisattvas who don't encounter enemies very often cherish this opportunity. They even nourish relationships with beings of bad character, because they may not get an opportunity to do so again in the future, and practice patience, practice being compassionate, applying the antidotes in this little mini scale in our own mind stream. Whenever I see sentient beings of bad character consumed by strong negative actions, negativities, and heavy suffering. Actually, the word heavy or dak can go to both of them. It's not just sort of overwhelmed by intense negativity, compulsions. So you could say those who are overwhelmed by compulsion to do negative actions, and either they themselves are manifesting heavy suffering, or they knowing that they will experience heavy suffering in the future. Sometimes people who are very bad might seem in a position of power, in wealth, having a lot of control over others. So they don't appear to be suffering to the worldly eye. That's why sometimes people might emulate them, people that would easily fall prey to trying to imitate that kind of behavior, because they seem to be very successful, being mean and using anger and so forth, and out of their attachment working to get what they want, irregardless of how it affects others. So when you meet people like that, to cherish them even more so, like having found a precious treasure that itself is difficult to acquire, difficult to encounter again in the future, rarely found, difficult to find. Nepar kawe chesin shok. Nepar means to acquire or obtain or to find. Kawa means difficult. So difficult to find, difficult to acquire. Rarely, well, here Thupten Jinpa says rarely found. So, as I mentioned last time, the special feature of training the mind A couple special features. One of them is to constantly, as its aim, the aim of it is to try to develop the two bodhicittas. So whatever you do, whatever you need to use to overcome your repulsion to such a person, to see them as a rare opportunity, you need that. It might be something that will instill the conventional bodhicitta in you, help to develop that, develop compassion for them and so forth. And also to see that your own reaction to them is based on your own delusions, your own desire to be free of temporal suffering. The bodhisattvas don't act in that way. The bodhisattvas act in such a way that they're happy to experience suffering for the sake of others. So to do that, you need to apply your meditation on emptiness, to apply the antidotes, the conventional, the temporal antidotes, and the ultimate antidote to the delusions. Ultimate antidote to the delusions, as I said before, is the meditation on emptiness. There are particular temporal antidotes, means those antidotes that while they are present, while they're temporarily in your mind, your own delusion can't rise. Ultimate antidotes are, once they've been applied, say realization of emptiness. Well, let's say even realization of emptiness can be a temporal antidote in the sense that if you haven't had a direct realization of emptiness, just having an intellectual understanding of it, while that understanding is there, that can subdue the delusion. But the real meaning of ultimate antidote is when you've developed a direct realization of emptiness, applying that in meditation again and again, it will eradicate certain of the delusions in steps as you meditate longer and longer, so that they will never come back again. So even if you're not meditating on that antidote, having eliminated the delusions, having abandoned the delusions through applying the meditation on emptiness, realization of emptiness, they become less and less present. Yeah, and even as we apply these antidotes, the delusions become our own delusions, our own response to things that generally cause us problems, our own response to them, our own delusions become less habitual. We don't automatically fall into, that. I had a roll of paper here before, but I didn't have it now. Like one teacher in the Library of Tibetan Works and Archives a long time ago, Geshe Darge, who was one of our teachers for a long time, Geshe Darge used to say, being familiar with the delusions, the afflictions, is like when you roll a piece of paper up, or like poster paper. You put a rubber band around it to carry it somewhere. You give it to someone. You take off the rubber band, you roll it out, and then sort of rolls back. You have to. Takes a long time to flatten it out. Like that, our delusions, because we're so familiar with them, there's that natural kind of tendency to fall into them being activated, like the rolling up of the piece of paper. So it takes a long time to start to straighten it out. As we get less and less familiar with the delusions, by applying the antidotes, they become less frequent, less prevalent. Now, last time, I didn't give much time to questions. I wonder if some of you have some questions now. We finished 4 of these verses, and we've got 2 more weeks to finish the other 4. So if there aren't any questions, I can go on to introduce another of the verses, just so that next time we might finish that and two more. But if you have any questions now, feel free to ask. I don't know I think there's some procedure you probably know. Something you raise your hand or something like that.
If you have questions, please use the raise hand function, and we will unmute you.
Ricky Ida Lim raised hand. All right. Does Ricky have a question? You have to unmute yourself, I guess.
Okay, Venerable, thank you very much. Hi.
Hello.
Because we didn't attend your previous sessions, could you share with us some of the antidotes that we should try to reflect upon when we are trying to avert these delusions? Thank you.
Which particular delusions are you interested in?
I didn't know that there were so many. But I guess in general, because we are very new to all this, so as best as the more common ones, maybe anger or jealousy or more attachment. I mean, what should we bring to mind immediately when we come across this and is fortunate enough to recognize it?
Right. Well, not just fortunate. You have to use some effort. You have to be vigilant. So you have to investigate your mind stream, and my mind screams. You have to watch it, and you have to have recognized them. So you have to use some time, even in meditation session. Look at your own mind while you're meditating and there's no one there, and bring into the meditation session like something that has caused you problem before, like someone criticizing you or not valuing you to the extent that you think, sort of, and watching your own reaction to that, like say, not just disappointment, but sort of resentment, which is a form of anger and so forth. Then you have to recognize before you apply the antidote, you have to really recognize the defects of those delusions, whether it be your own attachment to someone. In your meditation, you might bring up someone or something that you're very attached to, and watch how your mind exaggerates the quality of that. And in so doing, it superimposes upon it some qualities that it does not really have. Actually, that's a common feature with other things also, like anger and jealousy. Things that are unpleasant, we superimpose on some fault onto that person or object or situation that is not really there in an ultimate sense. It's not inherently there. It's just our way of looking at it. And that exacerbates, that increases our anger or our attachment. So you have to recognize the defects of the affliction and then apply the antidote. Like we said, the antidotes to anger. One of the antidotes to anger, once you've recognized it and you think, man, I've got to get rid of this, to recognize that this is a result of your past. What you're experiencing right now is not a direct result of the other person. They're a cooperative cause, but the main cause is you're creating the karma to experience this unpleasant situation. As I mentioned in earlier times at ABC, rather than thinking this is something I don't need, or as I say, this is, the other person is the problem, to actually think that the real problem is our negative karma that we created, that this is a result of the negative karma that we created in the past. In so doing, you diffuse the situation somewhat, because you're taking your mind away from focusing on the other person as being the cause, and you're putting it back on yourself. I created the cause for this. So even the first thing, just turning your mind away from focusing on the other person as being the cause of your anger, that starts to lessen your increase of anger, the perpetuation of the anger, and recognizing it as a result of your own past karma. You don't have anger for the other person any longer. You feel some kind of discomfort with the fact that you have this reservoir of negative karma in your own mind stream. If you had not created the cause for this, you wouldn't be experiencing it now. I think this is called the arrow and the target. Like if we had in the past, we created some negative karma, like shooting an arrow that's continued in our mind stream to the present. When we encounter some outside situation, that arrow can hit the target and cause us some suffering. The outside situation is like the target that has appeared. If we don't encounter any kind of negative situations, that negative karma will remain in our mind stream until it encounters some cooperative condition for it to ripen. Maybe the person says harsh words to us, or cheats us, or disrespects us, or doesn't appreciate us enough, or leaves us. Someone that we had some hope or expectation of their friendship or their fidelity or their loyalty or whatever. There's no way that can happen unless we created the karma. So that in some situations, that one point alone may be enough for you to diffuse the situation and not be blaming the other person as the principal cause of your suffering. The principal cause of your suffering, my suffering, when things happen to me, is my creation of negative karma in the past. So when you look at it that way, you can feel maybe even some relief. This karma now is finished or is finishing. That particular karmic seed, that arrow that I shot in the past. And like in the mind training, we talk about recognizing these negative situations as an opportunity to purify our negative karma. I think the Kadampa Geshes had a way of thinking that when good things happened to them, they felt very nervous. When they were praised or they received a lot of resources or comfort, because they saw it as the diminishing of their virtuous karma that they would like to be able to use as a resource to make realizations and to help other sentient beings, rather than just for their own ego satisfaction. When good things happen to worldly people, like we are all worldly to a certain extent, there's a certain kind of satisfaction and happiness and so forth. But the bodhisattvas feel uncomfortable with that. Whereas when bad things happen to us, worldly people, we feel uncomfortable, something's not right, this shouldn't be happening to me. Whereas the bodhisattvas relish that because they see that as the opportunity to diminish their negative karma, their stored negative karma. So their virtuous, when good things happen, they see their virtuous karma going down. When bad things, what did I say? When good things happen, they see their virtuous accumulation going down. When bad things happen to them, they see their negative karma going down. So they would rather have negative things happening like that. So that's one antidote to anger. Another antidote is impermanence. To recognize that this too will end. There's a famous, I remember reading in a Sufi text many, many years ago, this one, some story, and one of the refrains is, "This too will end." I think it's you find that in many kinds of spiritual teachings, impermanence. Recognizing that the situation that you find unbearable and is causing you to get angry, let's say, this is another antidote. There are the Kadampas had 4 antidotes to, easy antidotes, conventional antidotes to anger. To recognize that this situation will change. It's not so unbearable when you recognize that something will end. Like, say, this pandemic that we're experiencing. It's not going to go on forever. In America, here in the United States, our dear President Trump will not go on forever, however you think of that as good or bad. That can also, recognizing that this too will pass, can be very like a drop of water, like pouring water on on your head when you're very, very hot. I told the story of a friend of mine in Lebanon who had been arrested. I won't go into the details of the story now, but I told it before there. And he was in a Lebanese prison, which is maybe not as bad as the Turkish prisons or some of these other prisons that you hear about in movies and stories and such, but was very bad. When I went to see him, when the first day I could see him, they had a courtyard where they brought out the prisoners one by one. Some bars were there. And I came up and I asked him how he was. He'd already been molested and beaten and so forth within the prison, just in the one day he was there. And he and I had read these Sufi texts, and he said, "This too will pass." So just knowing that can help to eliminate one projection of the mind that thinks this is going to be eternal. So you have to strike out now. So karma, arrow in the target, impermanence. Seeing the situation as something that's beneficial for you, like a teacher, to see the other person as your guru, rather than thinking they are someone that you don't need. In fact, we have that expression in English in America. When I was overseas for many years, I didn't hear this expression. But then when I came to the States, there were a lot of people saying, "I don't need this." You know, like someone's arguing with you. "I'm going away. I don't need this." Actually, if you see the situation as giving you the opportunity to practice spiritual qualities, they are, and the situation is, something that you do need. It's your guru. It's giving you, what is a guru? A guru is not someone who always, "Oh, Kokwa, Fred, you're so wonderful." It's always treating you with love and affection. There are times for that, but also the guru points out directly your ego and how to overcome that. Can be very wrathful at times, like Marpa, the Guru Marpa with Milarepa and so forth. So to see the situation as your guru can start to, and the person as your guru, giving you the opportunity to practice patience, rather than thinking, this is something I don't need, think this is something I do need. This is like my guru teaching me. Turning your attention away from projecting that you don't need it, thinking this instead acts as an antidote, a temporal antidote to anger. And then compassion, 4th antidote. So arrow in the target is karma, impermanence, the conventional, you might say conventional ultimate truth, impermanence, and guru, seeing the situation as something that you do need. This is giving you the opportunity to practice patience and generosity and so forth. And someone keeps on nagging you for something, giving you the opportunity to practice generosity. And then compassion. Rather than thinking this person, like once something that can exacerbate the mind of anger and striking out is thinking this person deserves it. Do you ever use that expression? When someone says, "Why did you get so angry?" And you say, "Oh, they needed that." Have you ever heard that expression? I've heard people say that. Or we may think in our own mind, they deserved that. But we ourselves, when we create negative actions, when we're bad, when we're lazy, when we're overcome by our delusions and our activities are bad, we would like to think that we're forgiven. The example is like Chinese people. So if auntie has or grandma has a Ming vase on her table and you knock it over, you're aghast, and to think that grandma or auntie would say, "Oh, don't worry about it, it's okay." Or if you stain the rug with ink or, some stain that's not going to come out of the precious carpet, for them to say, "Oh no, it needed to be cleaned anyway, don't worry." We feel so relieved. To think out of compassion for the other person, their action that has created karma that's harmed us in some way was instigated by our own karma. If we didn't have the karma to experience that, they might not have acted in that way that's been harmful to us, or in a more direct way, if we hadn't got angry with them or done something, they might not have created that which is causing us some discomfort, causing us to get angry. So to meditate on compassion. Of course, when we talk about impermanence, that's kind of like the conventional, I said conventional ultimate truth, sort of like in a conventional sense. That's how all the things that we encounter are. But the ultimate, you could place in that another fifth antidote, meditating on emptiness. That this situation is devoid of any inherent nature, if you understand emptiness. So maybe we have time for another question, if someone else has another one, or if not.
Yes, Venerable George, Yin Huang has a question.
Venerable, when I hear you say that the verse, "I hold myself the lowest," I know that as a leader, I need to be humble and I need to serve the people who are following me. But to hold myself the lowest, I feel it's a bit of a stretch for me.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give me some comfort that it is the correct way to lead and that people will want to follow someone who holds himself the lowest?
Well, you could be in a position of responsibility and leading others, even teaching and helping them in various ways, and recognize, say, for instance, if you were leading your mom along the street or teaching her how to put an app on her phone or something like that, if you felt superior to her, you may not actually be able to enact that activity very authentically. But recognizing your indebtedness to her kindness in the past. What is it? I remember Alex Berzin, the translator, American translator, translating from Tibetan, said when he talked to the Dalai Lama once, in giving explanations, the Dalai Lama said, you should think that the people that you're giving the explanation to are your mom, rather than, using, superior language, trying to impress with your understanding of it, to teach what's really essential in a very, not dumbed down, but simple way which takes real skill to be able to do. As you may know, if you try to teach or to try to help, sometimes if you speak in too complicated a way, too abstract a way, and are getting carried away with your own ego, your own the splendid way that you're teaching it or something, it may not be as easily accessible to the other person. So to think, like when we teach our mom, if we help our mom walking down the street or into her car or to the restaurant or helping her in some technical thing, fixing the pipe in the kitchen or whatever, we do it out of a sense of course, we have confidence in that we have some ability that we can help, but we're doing it from a point of view of feeling ourselves lower than the other person, that they have provided so much to us. So I think that's one facet of that. Does that help at all? That the person who asked that question, does that address your
Venerable, yes, this does very much, and focusing on the gratitude, I think, will make it much easier for me to do. Thank you.
Yeah. So when we think of ourselves as the lowest, the lowest of all ways. So rather, if you think of yourself as higher status, talking to someone on the street, like like in India, they might say, I'm a Brahmin and they're a Sudra or whatever, I'm high class, they're low class, or one can't help in an authentic way. One can't really be a very good leader to them. But to have qualities, to recognize your own qualities and to have confidence in that, and let's say if you talk about terminology that sounds almost like from Tantra, divine pride, recognizing that, but in a karmic sense, that we're indebted to all sentient beings who've been our mothers in numberless lives in the past. And even when they weren't mother, even when they were enemy, they helped us in various ways. When they were strangers, they helped us. They delivered the milk, they paid the salaries, they paved the roads. Even if they did so for their own sustenance, they worked in order to make money, and even if they did so out of the ego, they benefited us, and in so doing, they harmed themselves. So to feel even greater indebtedness to them. So,
Venerable George, we
Yes.
still have two more questions.
Okay.
Are you okay to take them?
I'm okay. I just didn't want to keep other people
Okay.
longer than they are.
Sure.
Yeah.
Cindy has a question that she typed in the chat, that she's saying that there's a saying that when we practice and progress well in Dharma, more negative.
When we practice and what?
When we practice and progress well in Dharma, more negative things happen to us because it gives a chance to ripen our negative karma more quickly. Is it true?
It can happen. That can happen. In fact, that's, like I said, the bodhisattvas, as they're practicing negative karma that might ripen in future lifetimes or prevent them from having a continuity of human lifetimes, might ripen in the life before that, in, say, the present life, as a bad headache or disgrace or losing of your job or something like that, being sick. It said in the Vajrachetaka, the Vajrakutta Sutra, that reciting that sutra, if you know, the Buddha said, if one recites this or teaches this and memorizes this and so forth, great harm can befall you. But that is wonderful because that's a result of this incredible virtuous action of memorizing or reciting or writing or teaching this sutra. I remember once when I was planning to give a set of teachings on the Vajracchedika here to a center in Asheville, I fell in my garden, just fell down. I just sort of, as though I sat down, and I had sciatica for about, just with the motivation of teaching it. And I didn't even teach it yet, but was, you know, studying it and getting ready. And so from a worldly point of view, you can think, oh, this is terrible. But from a Dharma point of view, whatever suffering we experience right now, what other hardships might come up as a result of practicing the Dharma, it's all that's helping us in our quest to make realizations. Serkon Senchab Rinpoche, one of the Lama Zopa Rinpoche's main teachers and one of my main teachers, he was the one, you remember the one that George Lucas used as his model for Yoda in the Star Wars. He actually, if you saw a picture of him and Yoda next to you, you'd say, oh, yeah. Anyway, Rinpoche was an incredible teacher. His reincarnation is with us now, probably in his 30s. He used to say, when you go on pilgrimage, thinking that you're going to accumulate virtuous karma, sometimes incredible hardships take place. You get lost, bandits come, things get stolen, you're cold, whatever. He said all of those hardships you encounter are a sign of purification. So we need to have some confidence in that, and to read the stories of the let's say the Jataka tales that I mentioned a little bit when I was in Singapore last time, the previous lives of the Buddha, the great hardships he endured for the sake of others, giving away his body and being abused by others, being banished when he was a prince without real cause, because of other people's jealousy or whatever. If we can't endure these small sufferings this lifetime due to practicing the Dharma, how could we envision working for numberless lifetimes for the welfare of others, experiencing all sorts of hardships along the way? So as you begin to do that, the hardships become less problematic for you, and you can actually see them as the ripening of your negative karma. I hope that helps a little bit. And you said there was one other question?
Yes, Venerable George. Gilmore has a question for you.
Yeah.
Yes. Venerable George, good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I've listened to your teachings on thought transformation before, but this time it is extremely uplifting. It's extremely uplifting. It gives me a lot of comfort and solace. I have one question in relation to the verse 2, especially in the practice when we have a lay community of lay sangha over here, and we practice together as brother, Dhamma brothers and sisters. Now, there's another verse which I've read in one of the sutra regarding the importance of kalyana mitra, spiritual friends, right? And in that short conversation between Venerable Ananda And the Buddha, Venerable Ananda approached the Buddha and asked the Buddha that is the Kalyanamita, being with spiritual friends, is that half of the holy life? And the Buddha replied and said, it is the whole of the holy life. Yeah, it is the whole of the holy life. Okay?
Don't say that, Ananda. It's not half the holy life. It's the whole holy life. Yeah, something like that. Right.
That's what the Buddha, I think you have said, is the whole of the holy life.
Yeah.
So in trying to do this particular practice, verse number 2, it is very challenging, even without being in a lay sangha community, right? It is extremely challenging. But if one is then within the lay community, then it gets even more difficult. So my question specifically then is, how do I put the two together? Yeah. Combine the two together so that the practice can be, my own practice can be a little bit more authentic, because there's always the part of our own ego, right? Thinking that, well, I know in doing that already. So if one sees that, if I see that, let's say one of my Dhamma brothers or sisters is a little bit sort of over the edge, then with that in mind, the role of the support of the Kalyanamita, then how do I put these two together? I don't know whether I'm phrasing it properly for you.
Okay, I hope I understand. Let's say one of the benefits of holding oneself lowest and cherishing others as supreme,
right,
is that you will have harmony.
Yes.
Rather, and that is in terms of the sangha, the lay sangha, the ordained sangha. That is one of the most important things. When there's disharmony, it's very difficult to make for yourself or others to make realizations, even over many, many years.
Yes.
There's disharmony. That's why among the 5 actions of immediate retribution, which sometimes people translate as the 5 heinous actions or whatever, one of them, in fact, in one sense, the most detrimental is to cause schism, disharmony in the Sangha. So holding yourself as low as holding others as supreme, even if you're acting as a guide, like say the example I gave to a previous question, if you're guiding your mom, your grandma, or your auntie, or your mom down the street, you don't do so out of a sense of your own superiority. You may have some skill that you can impart to others, but they themselves have qualities that you don't necessarily see right away, besides the qualities of having been kind to you over numberless lifetimes. One of the texts that Lama Zopa Rinpoche has mentioned is important, is one of the sutras, remembering the kindness of others. And I remember Geshe Darge used to say also, Lama Tsongkhapa said, or some other Lama said, if we didn't have access to that sutra, we might not recognize the kindness of others. We wouldn't recognize all of the various ways to meditate, to recognize that. So recognizing their kindness, more and more we hold them as, we cherish them as supreme. And one of the other hallmarks of the mind training, there are many, I said that it's mainly to train in the 2 bodhicittas, and using methods to transform the adverse conditions of this degenerate time, which can become the big problematic things, that can, you don't have a way of transforming them, seeing them as your guru, so to speak, they can become obstacles to your practice. But one of the other essential points is put all the blame on the self-cherishing thought and remember the kindness of others. There are various, maybe half a dozen of essential core points and then many subsidiary points to the training of the mind. So from the depth of your heart, sincerely to cherish others as supreme, that they are more important than yourself. Just as an aside, I don't know if it's a completely applicable, but I remember when my brother, I have two brothers, one of whom has been in a mental hospital the last 20 years or so. And he visited me before he went to the mental hospital. He visited me at Manjushri Institute in England and did all sorts of naughty things. He got into all sorts of troubles, arguing with me all the time. And I remember going to see Geshe Tekchok, who was, there were 2 million Geshes there. And Geshe Tekchok said, like I said, my brother had made a sandwich with wonderful bread in the kitchen, the homemade bread that the cooks made, and put all this peanut butter on it. He took one bite, then he threw it away. And I got so angry at him. Went to Geshe Tekchok, said all these kinds of activities. And Geshe Tekchok said, you should act in a way that you don't know, that you don't recognize these faults that he's done. Just try to keep some heartfelt connection with him. You don't point out their errors right away. So I don't know if that's exactly applicable, but in terms of helping others, what can really pollute our ability to help others is that we consider ourselves to be superior. We're superior in education, superior in attractiveness or health, or we tease someone because they're overweight or underweight, or they don't exercise, or they don't do something, they don't eat well, health food, or something. To think that they have qualities that we don't have. That's the essence of that. So we've gone over a little bit more today, maybe worthwhile.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
So let's stop here, and hope to see you next time. If you've missed the first talk, I was told last time that it's up on YouTube on the ABC Media Center, or whatever it's called, on YouTube, so you can take a look at that. And yeah, hope to see you next time.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Venerable.
So, shall we end?
Yes.
Okay.